From Charlotte Pardey. The title is Burning Bodies, Fire and Myth-Making in Hassouna Mosbahi's Ḥikāyah Tūnisīyah.
Yes. In this presentation I will show you how you can gain greater insight in the society by looking at the body in literature and literary works, and this allows a small glimpse at my PhD dissertation, in which I look at representations of the body in Tunisian literature in general. Yes, and in my analysis of Hassouna Mosbahi's novel Ḥikāyah Tūnisīyah from 2007, which means a Tunisian tale, Tunisian society will appear as a society that is suspicious of the female body and suffering from the suppression of the marginalized. It will also be described as a disillusioned society that only finds relief in storytelling. I will show that the burning body tells its own story, and that through its fire and its ashes, it contains a readiness to be turned into a myth. This is what I want to show, the mythical aspect. And I chose to speak about Mosbahi's novel because of the central role Mohamed Bouazizi's self-immolation played for the Tunisian uprising, or was at least perceived and transmitted in the media as having played. And I believe that through looking at the novel and through trying to understand the symbolic meaning of the burning body in the novel, also the image of the burning human within the context of the Tunisian uprising can be more readily understood. However, to detect the importance of this concept of the burning man with regards to the Tunisian uprising, a look at the media coverage suffices. His self-immolation, as you will all know, was time and time again referred to as the spark that lit the rage of the ordinary people and caused them to take to the streets. Of course, there were other self-immolations before and afterwards that happened, but these didn't receive the same attention. And to this day, almost 5 years after the actual events, publications still refer to the self-immolations either in their titles or in some other way. So the image of the burning man still has a strong importance, catches attention, and I want to argue in the following that this interest that is created is connected to the fire, but that it's not just the actual burning fire, but also the metaphorical fire that was burning within Tunisian society pre-2011. Now one might ask whether the body and the discussion of the body is actually new or a reflection of current days. And in fact, it's not. In Tunisian society, Tunisian research landscape, the body has been a topic that's been discussed for a long time. There are, for example, Mounia Lachhab's 2012 edited volume, Penser le corps en Maghreb, but also there are various cultural and literary journals that have either dedicated small sections or entire issues to the subject of the body and other themes such as al-Jasad wal-Falsafa, the body and philosophy, or Le corps maghrébin dans tous ses états. Why then is it relevant to discuss the body now and with regards to a novel that does not even reflect the events of the Tunisian uprising, but was published several years before winter 2010-2011? It's not to say that the interest in the body is necessarily a direct result of the uprising, but that the uprising is rather the result of long ongoing inner turmoil in society that also found its expression via bodies. And this, I believe, can be seen in Ḥikāyah Tūnisīyah. Now, to lead over to my discussion, I would like to briefly summarize what happens in the novel so that you have a certain idea of what I'm talking about. So the novel is alternately told by the murderer in his prison cell and by his victim from beyond the grave. And this victim of his was his mother, who was burned to death. And the incineration has occurred prior to the beginning of the narrative, but is only described almost at the end of the novel. And thereby the fiery death shapes the narrative and forms a point of irritation. One wonders, why did the protagonist kill his mother? And the answer is part of this Tunisian tale, and it's a tale in itself. The mother is described as having been the stereotypically beautiful village girl who is, as I believe, quite often featured in modern Arabic novels, and she's constantly watched by her family to protect her honor. Then she marries, moves to the city, and her beauty causes the entire neighborhood to harass her and to be envious of her and to gossip about her, which gives her the reputation of being a dishonorable woman, for which she is at the end punished with death. Now this leads me to my next point, which is the integrity of the female body as a risk factor for family honor and the destructiveness of gossip and the bad reputation. And the female body can be seen here as a symbol for the tensions in society, and thereby it also characterizes society and the tensions. And the subject of virginity is of utmost importance in the novel as well as in Tunisian society, as Hassouna Mosbahi discussed in her article La construction sociale du corps féminin vierge en Tunisie. And in this article she describes that virginity is almost sacralized in Tunisia and is a central part of the construction of female sexuality and thereby also of male sexual identity. Something that has to be protected at all costs, whether the girl concerned wants it or not. And in addition to the virginal body of the young woman, also the body of the mother is referred to in the novel. And the novel plays with a certain there is a certain irony in the fact that on the one hand the mother receives great respect in Tunisian society almost as an institution, but then, as the author of the novel highlighted for me, on the street in popular jokes and swear words the mother is made victim of, or used, whatever. The opinion of the street interferes with personal happiness, as the novel shows, and this is what I would like to call the fire of bad reputation. In Ḥikāyah Tūnisīyah, Tunisian society, and especially the neighbors in Haïnim, which refers to a poor quarter called Melassine, are shown to haunt the protagonist and his mother with their gossip. And the gossip eventually provokes the murder by convincing the son that his mother is in fact a striptease dancer for Westerners. And he kills to quiet as what he calls the volcanoes whose fire had been eating away at his body for years. Now, over the course of the novel, the mother's death becomes a symbol for the oppressiveness of society and its consequences. Several narrative perspectives are mixed to create a tale, the tragedies of which the author seems to see exemplary of Tunisian society, which is reflected by the title he gives his novel, A Tunisian Tale. And the murderer accordingly is shown as a victim of society. The son's internal flames, or his burning body, refers to the destruction in his soul through social scrutiny against his family. Only by realizing this internal burning, by acting out his revenge and killing his mother, he can regain his voice. And he can turn the fire of rage into lumps of ashes. And he uses this metaphor in the first chapter. And it's interesting to see, I believe, that similar issues can be traced in Bouazizi's self-immolation, although they have to, of course, remain speculations. He was also seeking a voice to protest, to show his disapproval with the authorities' behavior, and to express his despair regarding his situation as an underprivileged youth in Tunisian society. And I think this is very parallel to the protagonist. The mother also states at the beginning of her first chapter that she has been turned into ashes. And the fact that the story starts with not just one, but both of the characters using the very same metaphor, to be turned into ashes, leads me to the next and final section of my paper, in which I will argue that the storytelling unfolds out of these ashes. I will analyze this regarding its mythical potential, with specific reference to the myth or the image of the phoenix, the bird that is reborn out of its own ashes. In Ḥikāyah Tūnisīyah, the structure of the phoenix image is present, although it's not directly named. But I follow Gaston Bachelard, who says that, or who argues that the phoenix is naturally present in any literary treatment of fire, even if the image is only implicit. And after dealing with the novel, I will argue that the myth of the phoenix can be used to describe Bouazizi's important and symbolic meaning as well. Now, the mythical appears in the novel through its structure. The multiple narrative voices allude to the polyphony of communal storytelling and show it as an intergenerational process of shared knowledge. And this effect is heightened by the inclusion of a short fairy tale that is narrated at various points throughout the novel. The phoenix image is found in the structure of the narrative and its circularity. As I told you already, the story starts with the ashes and then is narrated almost backwards to arrive at the actual burning that produces the ashes. And the same circularity is also a core element of the image of the phoenix. He lives, burns, and then is reborn, and it's almost like a circle. And yeah, death through fire, and more specifically suicide by fire, has been described in like medical articles as a form of suicide for the marginalized and for the underprivileged, because it's easily accessible. And especially in developing countries, it is used mostly by women who are older, married, and less well educated. And I believe that the protagonists of Ḥikāyah Tūnisīyah fit this pattern of marginalization, while I'm of course aware of the difference between suicide and homicide. However, the literature also states that killing by fire is not a usual method of murder in Western societies where guns and other things are readily available. Again, using fire highlights the marginalization of the murderer. And the son is also an underprivileged youth who dropped out of school. So while he overcomes his voicelessness through killing, the mother's post-mortem testimony returns her voice to her. It is a voice that defies the patriarchal society under which she suffered throughout her lifetime, the fire of jealousy and hatred that brought her neighbors and even her son up against her and finally led him to kill her. And out of fear from being dishonored by his mother, he kills to quench, as I think I quoted before, the fire of doubt that was burning inside him. And this shows Tunisian society. This shows Tunisian society as being centrally concerned with the female body, its integrity, and especially its control through paternalistic society. The resurrection in Ḥikāyah Tūnisīyah is in storytelling, and it's through language. And this is highlighted by the mother's first sentences. I speak from beyond the grave. Can you believe this, O living people? Your response doesn't matter much to me because I can't hear it anyways. But let me assure you that just a short while ago, the merciful angel whispered to inform me that I can address you from the furthest reaches of eternal darkness. Her death, as you can see in the quote, is neither denied in the novel nor overcome, but through storytelling, her voice continues. The burning, or rather the burned body, narrates its own story in the most literal sense here, and contributes to its myth-making. And while this is a fictional element here, I think it's worth to think about it with relation to Bouazizi's role for the Tunisian uprising. By being referred to as the spark that lit the rage of the people and started the uprising according to the media, by protesters pledging allegiance with him and his self-immolation, one finds the same aspect of resurrection. Even more so since the images that have generally been called to show him during the act of self-immolation are actually not showing him really, but show, I think, a different person who also self-immolated. And lastly, the phoenix image is present in the centrality of fire in the novel. The actual fire that is caused by the fires of fear, distrust, jealousy, and bad reputation. And these different types of fire, the metaphorical and the actual fires, they have been widely discussed in world literature and writing, and also the ancient Arabs were aware of it. And this is, I think, a point where the novel employs certain images that exist in cultural consciousness that have a religious or mythical background and are connected to fear and divine power, which highlights the powerlessness of the protagonist in comparison. However, through using fire and thereby controlling it, they experience a certain empowerment. Have I got time for the conclusion?
You're technically right on time right now. How long's the conclusion?
Well,
I just conclude briefly. Yeah, of course. I'm not going to stop you from concluding.
Okay, so what I wanted to show with this presentation is how you can understand society and how you can take an event like Bouazizi's self-immolation in the context of the Tunisian uprising and gain some greater knowledge through looking at a very similar situation in a piece of literature and how literature and society can be seen as connected. Thank you.
Great, thank you.